Across the pond.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Across the Pond. You're here with me again, UAP Lee, and joining us this evening is the friend of the show, Mark Christopher Lee, for his third stint on the show. Mark, welcome back.
Thanks for having me again.
Again.
And hopefully it'll be insightful.
No doubt you'll be back on again in the future, but, you know, as is always the case in this topic and arena, things are always progressing. It seems to be changing by the day at the moment. And the last time we did have you on, we did sort of brush on the beginnings of 3iAtlas because it was new into the solar system at the time, well, as far as we'd observed at least. And there were all kinds of theories being thrown up in the air. There were Anunnaki being mentioned and the second coming of Christ. And, you know, as it tends to happen with these things, once they hit social media, they start growing arms and legs. But we've had a lot more facts and information since then with Avi Loeb and various other people coming forward and speaking about this. Mark, what have you made of it all, this circus that is 3iAtlas and how it's developed?
Yeah, it's the gift that keeps on giving. It's an amazing object that obviously needs more study and you know there's still a slight possibility that it could be something anomalous, something technological in origin, even if it's really, really, really old and it's collected loads of dust and rocks and it's just weathered basically, which accounts for its appearance. But yeah, we're still no closer. It's not an ordinary comet, that's for sure. That has been, you know, it's so big. What is it, 30 million tons that's been estimated to be. So, and the precise orbit that it's taken is really, really unique and very rare. So there's all these little things that kind of add up to something weird. And I just think it's tapping into our psyche, our consciousness on Earth here. It's like we're wanting it to be more like a beacon, maybe to help us switch to the next level. It could be. I mean, you know, all bets are off, really. Even if it just turns out to be a large lump of rock, it can still teach us valuable lessons about, you know, humanity and our origins and our place in the solar system. And, you know, one day we will get an interstellar visitor, which is what Avi Loeb's going on about, which is why he's invented this Loeb scale. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, I'll come back to the Loeb scale in a while, but I wanted to come back to that since the developments have changed. But, you know, we mentioned it already. You know, the mass hysteria does always appear online when things like this happen. It happened with the Muamua. Borisov, I must admit, I'm not that familiar with, not as much as a Muamua sort of hit the headlines when that came about.
Me neither.
But this time, obviously, it really has grown arm and legs, and I say we've touched on it before already. But if we just, you know, let's stick to the facts as what we know for now. I know me and you, we tend to go into the esoteric side of things, and that's fun as well. But let's stick to the facts for now. And I think it's important to do that just for anybody who is dipping into this for the first time and maybe hasn't sort of familiarised themselves with this. We're talking about something that initially came into the solar system. People said it was a comet initially. Again, science said it was a comet. And there was no reason to think otherwise. But on closer observation, it seems to have been wrapped up in just anomaly after anomaly after anomaly. And what we're seeing, and if I was to just make this, and by all means go away and do your own research and look back at previous episodes, because we have covered it before, and familiarise yourself, because I don't want to go through it. But if we touch on some of the anomalies here, you know, what science is saying at the moment, and this is the official standpoint of NASA currently, and they haven't made a statement yet because there is a shutdown at the moment, but essentially what we're seeing from NASA and the officials, but other than Avi Loeb, is that it looks like a duck, it sounds like a duck, and it swims like a duck, therefore it is a duck. However, the thing that they're describing, it's a cow. Do you know what I mean? It's so vastly different from a duck. That at some point, what we're saying is, Mark, the narrative has to change. They can't keep calling this thing a comet because it's wrapped up in everything that suggests it's not a comet. So just for the viewer looking in, it's not just, you know, it's not an esoteric thing. There is anomalies with this scientifically that suggest it could be something else. And, you know, what we mentioned before with the Loeb scale initially, and this is maybe for the last month or two, Avi Loeb has said that this thing is a 4 out of 10. A 10 being definitely
Yeah.
NHI, and 0 being a confirmed comet. This is a 4. Since the updated images were released a couple of days ago, and things have changed dramatically since then, where do you think it could have shifted to on the lobe scale at the moment, Matt? Do you think Harvey's sat now in his office contemplating whether it remains at a 4?
Yeah, I reckon he's nudged it up to 5. That'd be my honest opinion.
Do you think
50.
so?
That's where I stand.
I think
It's not
maybe,
helpful,
yeah.
is it?
Possibly if he hasn't even confirmed it yet. I can imagine he's had that conversation with himself in the bathroom mirror before bed. Maybe this isn't a 4 anymore.
He's treading a difficult line because he is an established scientist. So he's got his reputation, but he does regret, I've spoken to him about this, that Oumuamua wasn't taken more seriously and wasn't studied in more detail.
Yeah, sure.
So he's got that at the back of his mind, and the two could be linked. As I said, I don't know much about Borisov, the first one either, but I know that he thinks Oumuamua deserved more research, and that had a weird elliptical orbit as well. So there is a possibility that the two are connected. And one of the anomalies that not many people's talked about is that Harvey Loeb has suggested the origin of this object comes from the same place where we had the infamous WOW signal.
That's right.
Which SETI discovered the radio transmission, and someone wrote WOW in the corner of the piece of paper. So is that just coincidence?
Yeah, that's
Possibly.
an interesting one, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
Both came from
It
the
is, and
Sagittarius star
absolutely.
system. To within a few degrees,
So,
I
yeah,
believe.
it's absolutely, yeah. So that's interesting. And then you can look into Graham Hancock's theory of the Younger Dryas impact and the Taurid meteor stream, and maybe this is somehow connected to something that came off 12,800 years ago, where the dates were.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of I guess they are kind of not conspiracy theories. They are theories with some validity. They're not just out there. I mean, it's difficult with the whole Anunnaki thing, and I'm sure that's not true. But yeah,
It's an
the
interesting
stuff like
one, is
that
that
could
stuff.
be.
Yeah, you can make the connection. You can.
It
You
is.
can easily make the connection. The one thing, that people are saying, there's a lot of sort of theory around it, if you want to say that this thing could potentially be some kind of probe that's been sent here to sort of raise the consciousness. Again, this is dipping our toe into the esoteric world of things now. I mean, this is guesswork. But again, there are people out there, and there's quite a lot of people out there that suggest that could be something to do with it. Who knows? Chris Bledsoe maybe falls into that category. I don't know what your opinion is on Chris and his views, but there are people out there that seem to put credibility to it.
Absolutely. I mean, my introduction to the whole unexplained phenomena came when I was a child. I had an experience. I had, a bit like Chris Bledsoe, I had a woman's face come out of my bedroom wall as a kid. It was a translucent, shimmering light. At the time, interpreted it as an angelic experience, which sounds a bit out there, but because of a religious upbringing. But now I look back on it, maybe it was something NHI. I don't know. It was had profound impact on me. But I'm a big champion of the links between the paranormal and UFOs, and maybe they're all part of the same phenomena.
Well, while we're on that topic, I assume you must have looked at the Patrick Jackson Sphere Network. Where,
Well, this is it. This is something I'm just dipping my toes into, and it seems absolutely
incredible,
fascinating, and could be groundbreaking,
without question.
And I just wonder what Jacques Vallée thinks of it all. I would like to get his take on it.
Well, strangely enough, Mark, I don't know if you heard. We had a couple of the guys. We had him on a TikTok live a few days ago, actually, and we put it to him. And the question that I was asked, because I was put on the panel, and I made sure, because the biggest issue for me, and again, you'll probably agree with this, Mark, is that there isn't any. There seems to be no interagency communication when it comes to the world of science. It's either this lab is looking at this, and nobody seems to work together and share information. And one of the things that I wanted to cut through was the red tape that you see locked in within our sort of education systems at the highest level with the universities. I wanted to cut through all the red tape and just go straight to source. And we had Avi Loeb on the live, like I said, and I had to put it to him. I says, look, listen, there's a gentleman here who's made a connection between supernatural and paranormal, in this case, poltergeist and the sphere network. He's put together a package, a paper, basically, an investigation, and it's pending peer review. Can we send you it? Because there's a connection here, we think, between some of this. Because the idea is there isn't any. This information seems to just hit a ceiling. It doesn't go any further. If we've got Avi Loeb there, or if we've got credible scientists, we could put the data to him.
Talking about a paradigm change.
But that's a game changer, Mark. Yeah. If Avi Loeb looks at Patrick Jackson's data and gives it some credibility, that's a game changer, because it's not just some kooky physicist we're talking about. You know what I mean? This is a Harvard astrophysicist, and if he's saying there's something to this, then I think that forces the hand of other people to look at these things and take these topics seriously.
Yeah, that's fabulous news. If he's going to take a serious look at it, that is great. And I'm pretty sure my own theory is that quantum physics is in there somewhere, and that the weird, spooky action at a distance, quantum entanglement. I'm pretty sure that's involved some way with energy. You can't destroy, or create energy. It's just transferred, and I'm pretty sure that's what's going on with psychic and paranormal phenomena, and maybe UFO phenomena. And like I said, I'd love to know what Jack Vallée would make of it, really. Because science, just because we can't explain, say, poltergeists or orbs in the sky, doesn't mean that there's not a natural explanation, the scientific explanation. Science hasn't gone there. We would need a massive paradigm shift, which is what mainstream scientists... It's the same thing that Graham Hancock's up against with archaeology. It's going to involve them changing the way that they think about everything.
Yeah.
Which is really difficult.
Well, the interesting thing is, Mark, is that we've mentioned it before on this topic, is that the connecting the dots and recognising the patterns. And you can, everything that we just spoke about there, like let's talk about the Sphere Network, for instance, just for a second. The Sphere Network, Patrick Jackson, this information comes to light no more than a couple of months after the Boogosphere makes its grand entrance into the world. The Boogosphere then goes and gets radio carbon dated from Georgia University, and the paperwork looks legit. And that looks legit, that part. And say what you like about the person who discovered it, but again, there's nothing that's debunked this yet. And this thing gets aged at 12,560 years old. That ties into what you just mentioned with the Younger Dryas thing. But then the Sphere Network also ties into that, because this thing is older than us, essentially, and it goes back years and years, as does Patrick Jackson's data show. So it could all be linked. Everything that we've talked about esoteric and, Anunnaki and all the rest of it. Who's to say that these people from these lost civilizations weren't talking about the Anunnaki? Who's to say that the Boogosphere isn't Anunnaki, or the Sphere Network isn't Anunnaki? And we don't know. Yeah. But this is all who's and ifs, whats and buts and maybes. But if you connect the dots and you look at the patterns...
it could, I mean, taking it one step further with the recent news by Tim Burchett saying there's probably 6 underwater USO bases.
Crazy.
That he knows of.
Crazy thing to come out live.
Maybe that links back to the original inhabitants of Earth. Maybe it's not.
Well, yeah.
Extraterrestrials are already here, so that could tie into it all.
If you want to make that connection, let's do that right now. Patrick Jackson said that the Tic Tac is linked to this Sphere Network. It seems to show up at the same time, and it seems to be sort of the reconnaissance vehicle. What Patrick Jackson suggests is that this thing is the thing that picks up what the Sphere Network drops out of the sky. So the Sphere Network defends us from whatever's coming into our atmosphere. Whatever falls into the sea, disabled, disarmed, or whatever, is retrieved by the Tic Tac. That's what he suggests. But Tim Burchett, he's obviously well in with Admiral Gilladot, is it? The fella that came forward and spoke at last year's hearing, Tim Gilladot, the Admiral, regarding these USOs. So everything that he mentioned on that news interview yesterday that everybody's speaking about, which is essentially soft disclosure, that links to the Tic Tac, because that Admiral spoke about that Tic Tac, and that's what he's talking about with these areas in the sea that have left undiscovered. So you could make the connection there. And then all we've done there, Mark, is had 1 10-minute discussion. And how many topics have we just sewn together and tied in? And it's just by following the clues. We've not done anything special. We just followed connected the dots.
Yeah, I know, because with the TikTok, a lot of people are, debunking it, and I've had to go myself. Mainly from the point that it's not extraterrestrial, but then none of it may be. It may already be here on Earth, under the sea, or maybe from other dimensions. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what Patrick Jackson's. I need to get up to speed with it, really. What his thoughts are, where they come from. Do they come in and out from other realities, or are they here present?
He suggests that this works in a tiered system, like a wedding cake. So you've got this sphere network at varying levels. You've got the atmosphere, the outer atmosphere, and then obviously the lower atmosphere. And then he says also in underground. He's saying, because a lot of these things are transmedium. They come in and out of mountain sides and all sorts and the rest of it. So he says that these things are operating under the surface as well. He's saying that these things are ultra-terrestrial, under surface dwellers.
Yeah, okay.
So that's where he's sort of leaning with his information, is that these things possibly could be. But one interesting point that was made to him is that this thing changes the way that it operates over the years. So it's adapting, which suggests this thing is capturing data because it's adapting the way that it operates to the way that we develop as a species, as a race, technologically. It's adapting to the way that we work. So something obviously has to be observing us, or at least taking notes and reprogramming this thing, be it AI or whoever's controlling this thing from a control room.
It's freaking weird, isn't it? I mean, that kind of ties in a little bit with John Keel, who was the first person to coin the phrase ultra-terrestrial in the 1950s. And he was just going around looking at newspaper reports of UFO, and he would go and interview the people who had these reports, and he noticed how weird they were and how otherworldly, and how their appearance they took was shaped by the observer, which is kind of what you get in quantum physics, really. We can't have reality is shaped by us perceiving it, and that's the essence of quantum physics. So there's a whole weirdness, and I've just been told you offline earlier that I've been working on my new film, and it's not about UFOs, but it's a drama, horror, but it's about simulation theory, and that's really, really piquing my interests, and that could possibly explain a lot of this. That the universe, life, if you want to know it, is some sort of massive simulation. And there's Professor Melvin Vopson, who I've spoken to about this at the University of Portsmouth, and he's a proper mathematician, statistician, and he's just looked at codes, patterns in maths, and he's found evidence that this code has been generated by something, and he suggests like gravity is just like the universe reordering itself, making it compressing data.
It's like interesting that you say that.
It's really weird. Yeah.
I mentioned the code thing just because I was shown a video actually very recently about these chaps, and they're doing a scientific investigation. Basically, they're not 1970s hippies or anything like that, but they're looking into the effects of DMT and what it could mean. And they found that this is where it starts to get really strange. They started using this DMT as a group, sort of setting. And they found that with this particular laser or this light, they shine this red light. But if they look into the light, they can see code in the. It's written as in code. And the weird thing is, when they all go and they see it and they look at it, it's all the same code. So they're all getting the same image and they're all getting the same visual effect, and they're all seeing the same thing. So it's not like it's an isolated incident to that individual in the way that the DMT is affecting his visual perception. It's doing the same to everybody, and everybody's seeing exactly the same thing, the code in this laser. It's crazy. I could probably send you it, to be fair. I've probably got it somewhere. I think the missus sent me it. But I'll send you it, and you got to see it. And it might tie in to something that you looked at, you were talking about with your film then. I just found that incredibly interesting. And then we see all these other
That
discoveries
is
coming
amazing.
from the psilocybin, from mushrooms and stuff, and the way that they go back into human history all these years, and the way that that connects us to maybe that life force,
Yeah,
that creation.
absolutely.
So there is a lot of talk about this
Yeah,
today,
I know.
especially with the effects that science has now proven that the effects of psilocybin mushrooms extend cell life. That's incredible.
Mm.
So it's an interesting direction we're going to take
It
here,
is,
Mark.
yeah, it is. And also, there's a program in the 1950s. It was called One Step Beyond. It was before the Twilight Zone. Okay, so it had all these true stories, and a bit like Twilight Zone, all a bit weird. But one of them was actually a documentary. This guy went to South America, got some mushrooms, took them back to Hollywood, and he did it under, scientific rules and procedures. And he took these mushrooms, right, on this TV program. It's on YouTube. You can see it. It's fantastic. And this presenter takes these mushrooms, and they test him. They tested him before for psychic abilities, and he had 0. He took these mushrooms. They tested him afterwards. He was like Uri Geller. He was like, he was seriously psychic afterwards. And this is all on a 1950s Twilight Zone type TV program. It's really, really weird. So I'm sure there is DMT, whatever, these kind of stimulants that take us up to higher levels of consciousness.
Well, there's something to be said, Mark, when when you think about it now, and you look at the benefits, the pros and cons of the magic mushroom, and you think to yourself, it's an interesting thing when they're getting bumped up to Class A alongside horrific substances like heroin and man-made poisons, essentially. And you think, why would the government of the world here go to so much length to make sure that common people don't go anywhere near something that comes from nature, that hasn't ever killed a single individual from an overdose? It's there's something to be said for that, Mark. And maybe there is more to that than meets the eye. Maybe it is because people are trying to genuinely dumb us down and keep us away from that higher thing, whatever that may be.
Yeah, absolutely. It would stop us ascending to the higher echelons, I guess, where maybe the NHI reside.
Well, there's a lot of talk about
sure,
consciousness, isn't there, at various levels. It's even when you're talking about the Greys and certain NHI species, you're talking consciousness, the way that they communicate with telekinesis and various other methods, often using consciousness. So the consciousness thing doesn't go away. It appears and it crops up in many a different conversation. And, and with mushrooms, they say that they're our connection to the old world. Back in the day, before Jesus and the modern gods, everybody had a number of gods. Greek mythology had, Mars, Jupiter, Ares, all the rest of them, and then same again with Romans and so it's always been a collection of gods, and we've always had that connection to nature. And then something just went wrong in our timeline, in our journey, basically, and it became less about our connection to the world and more about bringing in money for our masters. Do you know what I mean? And we have no connection anymore to the world, and I think it's coming back.
No, we don't. No. But yeah, the whole ethos at the moment is we're above nature, we're not part of it. This whole thing is like, that's what AI is about, is to basically get us ready to upload our consciousness onto some sort of cyber system.
Well, I spoke about this recently.
More with
if you want to make a connection, and again, we're jumping to conclusions really, but we're just having fun with it, I think, at this point. I think if anybody's still following this and doesn't think we're talking esoteric, possibly, then we are now, if I can confirm that. But there are conversations to be had that the 1952-1953 deal with Eisenhower and the Greys could have come to fruition. Because, again, if we just put the clues together and we just connect some dots here, and again, other people can join in if they like, but you got this massive jump forward in technology, a huge increase in abductions. Suddenly the hippie era turns up and people are really turning to mushrooms and other stuff like that. But, this consciousness conversation arises. Suddenly the governments of the world get involved and shut down the hippie thing big time. The abductions still continue. There's reverse engineered tech. This is, again, where sightings start happening. We're talking Phoenix Lights and... and various other big sightings. Along the way, as we're following the timeline along, and then all the way up to modern day, you think to yourself, could the Greys be us from the future? Because again, there's conversations to be had that suggest that the Greys are us from the future. They've come back to make sure that we get the technology and that they steer us in the direction that is better for them, i.e. uploading us to AI, as you've just been mentioning. So are they here to make sure that they steer humankind towards making sure that we solidify their future timeline by doing what you just said, integrating with technology, uploading our consciousness onto a chip, and essentially losing our humanity and becoming what a lot of people describe the Greys as being, soulless, one conscious, emotionless beings. There is something to be said for that, and again, it is esoteric, but there's a story out there and maybe a conversation to be had about that. What do you think?
Definitely. It's a grand theory of everything, really. I guess that's what I'm on a quest for. But you are absolutely right with that. I think consciousness is key. And you just going back to Patrick Jackson's sphere network, what I have read about it, it reminds me of, there was an experiment I've heard of called the Skull experiment. It was in Norfolk, I think it was the 1980s or early 1990s. It was a group of paranormal researchers basically set up scientific apparatus and wanted to get proof of life beyond. And they did. It's a fascinating experiment. And what they did, they got one picture that was taken, they didn't see it at the time, in the dark. And basically it was the face of a grey alien. You can go and see it all on YouTube. But they were expecting to find a grey alien. Obviously they were expecting some sort of ghost of apparition, but they had what looks like a grey.
Wow.
Really, really
and when was that, sorry?
So the Skull experiment.
In
Let's have a
the
quick look and
70s, did you say?
It's really fascinating. I think 80s, I think.
Well, that is interesting.
It's quite famous.
Again, I don't know if you've seen the Area
you
52
can see the
episode
picture.
of Patrick Jackson when he went on there and spoke to Chris Ramsey about the Sphere Network. One of the things that he said at the end is that he's found that to see these things, or visually to see these things, he's got this strobe light, which basically is a proton light, fires protons out, and that's how you can see between essentially the layers that we can, the 7 spectrums of colour that we can see. So he set this thing up and he put a camera to it, and obviously it works at 100 frames a second, this thing, so it's pretty quick, and it picks up a lot of stuff. But as he's replaying it, you can see the figure of what he goes on to say without saying it, a grey alien coming down and having a look at the camera and then moving off. And you can see this through the strobe light. And it's clear, if you look at the video, again, you can go and watch on Area 52. Shout out to Chris Ramsey, brilliant interview. That's what really hooked me into the Sphere Network. But you can buy these proton lights that he's talking about. And the stories that are connected to that, one of the guys that had bought a proton light and then sent him the review, he said that he put it on, and within half an hour he saw these two beings stood at the end of the bed. Sorry to swear, but his arse fell out, and he turned it off, and he's never put it back on since. And he says he's never using it again. But that's one of the reviews he mentioned from this thing. So one of these proton lights might be an interesting investment for somebody that wants to take a look into this. He says they're not very, they're affordable. It's just the way that it works. But maybe there's something to that connecting it.
That reminds me of the Vietnam soldiers that were wearing special goggles, weren't they? And they
the
saw
red
weird creatures and stuff.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. That was a really interesting one. Just for anybody listening in, Mark, if you want to tell the story, what was going on with these goggles?
It was just stories from soldiers from Vietnam. They were given these red goggles, and they're going out to battle, and they would see strange creatures coming towards them. Really freaked out.
And it wasn't an isolated incident, is it? Was it? Everybody was saying the same thing.
No, it's quite a lot. And then they had to get rid of them. It completely messed these guys up.
Yeah, but they've all got PTSD, and that's it. They've all got PTSD. And guys out there, if you're still serving and you're in the military, that's why we've got green night vision goggles now. So if you were wondering why they're in green and not red, that's why. Because we're giving people PTSD.
Yeah. That was swept under the carpet a little bit, though, wasn't it?
Wasn't it just?
Getting controversial.
We are.
Yeah.
So, we've sort of dipped our toe into the esoteric world. What I will say as well, I watched an episode. I want to bring this up. I don't know if you've seen it. Greg Braden, I think his name is, but he was on Joe Rogan the other day, and this is a guy. I think he was talking. Well, I'll just talk about what he was talking about first before I start talking about what he's done before. But he was on, and he was talking about basically the plight of the world of which we're going in at the minute, the direction that we're all heading in. Well, I say we're all heading in. We're being walked into it by a few people, I think. We're being walked into the drama that is the world of which we live in at the minute. And what Greg Braden was saying was that, he touched on the UAP thing, he touched on ETs and NHI and our consciousness. But one thing that was really cool was that he was talking about the human genome and some of the stuff that he's been working on. And that the H2 human genome in the DNA sequence and the H7 DNA human genome, they suggest that they shouldn't be there in our DNA strand. They shouldn't be there. Just the position of where they are on the helix is wrong. So what he said, and what this is sort of, I think it's, I don't know if it's pending peer review or whether it's been confirmed or not at the minute. I don't know. You'd have to quote me. Don't quote me on it. But basically, it's been discovered now that we're not a product of evolution, Mark. We're manipulated. Around 200,000, 300,000 years ago, they've checked it back, the DNA, around 200,000 years ago, we changed overnight. It wasn't an evolutionary thing. And this starts off the whole conversation about our past, the texts, and this is all of the stuff that he talks about, the Sumerian texts, the Babylonian the tablets. This is not religious text, and then a lot of people they make the mistake of tying in, biblical text with what the Bible says to the Sumerian text and the tablets of the Dead Sea Scrolls. These aren't not the Dead Sea Scrolls, but the Sumerian tablets. They make the mistake of connecting them and saying that it's religious, just rubbish. But the Sumerian texts weren't religious. It wasn't. It was just a record and information. It was like me and you getting our notepad and pen out back in the day, basically. It wasn't anything to do with God. And they're all saying the same thing, Mark, that we were all created, by beings from the sky people, whatever you want to call them, flying chariots for fire, whatever, however you want to call them. But worldwide, this is the same stories. And now we're starting to see the science and people with credibility backing this up. I've got to ask you, Mark, how long can this charade go on for? How long can he keep this veil of mystery over this for us? When? Because it's going to change everything, but how long?
It is a good question. But like I said earlier, it's going to involve a massive paradigm shift. It's going to upset a lot of people. I mean, I did a film called God versus Aliens, which touched on this, looked at, the evidence of UFOs in ancient texts. And obviously, like you said, they were religious texts, but that's the wrong idea. It's like a history manual, really, of, where we came from. And there is so much evidence, and all the kind of cultures have the same origin stories, beings from the sky, etc. Giants that might not have been physical giants, but spiritual and evolutionary giants. Yeah, and it's how far removed we are from other species on this planet, and how we've managed to take it over, and we're on a different level. So far away from, Nick Redfern made that point. There's no other animal like us on the planet. So I think there's definitely something. And how long can it go on for? It'll go on for as long as people can't face the reality. And, there's people in control, in power, that want to keep us in the dark, I guess. Because they want to control us. They want us to get in a position where we are uploaded and used. And they want to get, I don't want to get too political, but they're using the whole climate change. And, I'm not a climate denier. I've got an environmental studies degree, so I know how it all works. But they're using this to manipulate the agenda in terms of, meat is bad, cows are evil, they fart, so we should get rid of them and should all eat lab-grown meat. Well, that makes no sense to me. How is that going to be healthier and natural? And,
well, it's not,
And
but this is...
And you mentioned that... Sorry, let me just go...
Yeah, go on.
You mentioned
Absolutely.
earlier about, psilocybin and DMT and things like that. But the most important organ, part of the human body, is the pineal gland. Okay, that allows us to connect, I think, to whatever's out there. Gives us this psychic ability, paranormal, maybe connecting with the NHI, and the whole society is geared up to destroying the pineal gland just through chemicals. Some would argue vaccines, other things that basically play this down so it doesn't work so well.
Yeah, but the thing is, Mark, and this is one thing I think that independent journalists, again, like yourself, like us, all of the social media influencers, again, I think what's changed now, and I don't think that the top brass and the top corridors of power were ready for it, is that we're all getting a bigger crowd than them. Our politicians, the mainstream media, they're not working anymore. Do you know what I mean? People are listening to other people now and actually starting to go and find the information for themselves rather than relying on what these mainstreamers are going to bring them. Now, what that means for them is that people can see through the shit, mind my French, but that's true, is that because you can go and find that information at source. So when it comes to and this is, and I'll give anybody advice for this as well. If anybody's looking on, and there are so many of them out there, Mark, and it drives me mad. They call us the tinfoil hat wearers. For years, they've been banging the drum of conspiracy theorists. You're this, you're nuts, blah, blah, blah. And as the years have ticked by, we have seen again and again and again that we're proven right, that these are not conspiracies. These are not theories. These are facts. These are things steeped in evidence. And we're seeing the things coming out now. So anybody watching on, I'd say this. It's about time you wake up and start thinking critically and start looking at these things with a serious eye. And the best place to start, if you want to think me and Mark and other people are all foil hat wearing idiots, go and look at the money. Just go and follow the money, and it always comes back to the people at the very, very, very top. And it's follow the money. That's all I did, right? I'll make this connection for you, Mark. If, let's say, for instance, you're a new individual to this topic, okay? And if I come to you and I say there is corruption in the US government blocking the disclosure of the existence of NHI to us all, you would say, how do you know that, right? And I would say to you, because the guy who blocked it, he donates money to Lockheed Martin every single year. He's a donor of Lockheed Martin. The guy that blocked the UAP disclosure bill from passing is a Lockheed Martin donor. Yeah. A huge aerospace billionaire company that have got now that you can see contracts with the US government and State Department with regards to their contracts militarily, right? So if I say that to you and you go and look at that and you see that this man who's blocked this disclosure has made that donation and you can see he's in bed with these people, does that make me a conspiracy theorist, or have I just shown you the evidence that says, well, that stinks to high heaven? Mark, what do you have to do for these people to wake them up?
I don't know. You are rocking the boat. You're upsetting the apple cart. You're the status quo. People like safe. They like, an easy life. And we're not doing that. We're saying, well, posing these questions, and this needs looking at. This person needs looking at. I mean, it is like that, isn't it?
But the worst thing is, Matt, the cat's out the bag now.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no putting it back in.
To conspiracy theorists, David Icke was always ridiculed, and I'm not a big fan of David Icke. I appreciate his honesty, but he's now looking quite sane.
Yeah,
a lot of the things he said,
I can imagine Terry Wogan's rolling in his grave right now for the way he treated him in '94, was it?
Yeah. I know.
Good God.
Yeah. And he is out there.
Well, he is, but like you said, a lot of the stuff is fairly close. Well, one of the things Dan invited me on from Foil Hat Theories, believe it or not, irony in that we're talking about no conspiracies, but Foil Hat Dan has told me this week, he's invited me on, kind of him actually, as a panel member on TikTok. He's got a whistleblower on, an engineer for the 5G networks, and this chap is coming on to talk about these 5G towers. Now, I connected this to a guy who did an interview with Liam Tufts not long ago. Blade Runner, his name is. He cuts about London chopping down ULEZ cameras, and everybody thinks he's a massive hero. But one of the things he did is he had one of these ULEZ cameras reverse engineered essentially by a technician that he knew of. And he says that the laser that is within the ULEZ camera, is the spec of it is outrageous. It's military grade spec that are in these things, way too powerful to be doing the job that the specific, that they say that they're doing. And it's an energy weapon. It's a direct energy weapon. And again, this guy's coming on to talk. I'm not connecting that to the 5G, by the way. I'm speculating. You can call me a theorist if you like. But there's a connection, I think, with the way that these ULEZ cameras went up and the 5G towers went up during COVID. And the 5G towers, again, this is completely esoteric and speculative, right? But if what you're saying is about the pineal gland, consciousness, the way that we interact with our outside world, that's the invisible outside world, the bit that we don't know about really, or we're starting to understand a little bit about it, but that can be affected heavily by the way that these 5G towers and ULEZ cameras activate and the way that they work. Let's say, for instance, suppressing brainwaves, or let's say, for instance, interfering in the way that we operate electrically. Do you know what I mean? It could potentially cause fatalities. Good if you want to depopulate the world, by the way, I will say that. But also good if you want to suppress the consciousness of a massive populace. That's why you see them in like built-up areas. Is it about phone signal? I don't know, Mark. But there's a lot of weird things. But we're going to be talking to that guy this week, by the way. I'm going to ask him some questions. But it's about connecting the dots. Could it be used as a consciousness suppression, the 5G towers? Is that something that's happening behind the curtain to keep us dumb, keep us stupid, keep us poorly?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is, to be honest. What worries me is the whole going on from that whole surveillance state is where we're heading to. I mean, there's already part of London now that's trying to get these biometric cameras put in. I think it's Hammersmith and Fulham, so everyone can be tracked at any time. That's a scary world we're heading to. I don't want to be part of that.
No, it is. It is. I don't think. I'm no right-wing conspiracy theorist. I've always been centre left until COVID, and that kind of just opened my eyes. I didn't want to be. Why am I trying to be controlled? Why? I don't want to do that. It doesn't make sense to me. I've got a science degree. I don't want to do what you're telling me to do. That makes no sense to me. Well, the way I rationalise. Oh, go on, Mark. Go on.
But if you spoke out of line, you were considered, I don't know, an anti-vaxxer or something like that, which I've never been.
It's a crazy time, COVID.
I've had vaccines, but I know. But you were lumped in with a load of. I don't know. You were lumped in as a fucking weirdo. I'm not a weirdo. That was what really got on my tits. Sorry for swearing.
No, I think you're well within your rights, and a lot of people noticed a lot of weird stuff going on in COVID.
Yeah, definitely more to it than. I mean, I don't deny COVID was real. I'm just saying that the reaction to it was over the top, and a lot of people. I don't know. Maybe it was part of a bigger plan.
Well, this is the thing, and I don't want to talk about it on tonight's episode because it's an episode on itself. And I'll be honest with you, I think some of the connections I've made and some of the sort of theory I have on it is incredibly frightening, and I don't think I'd share it. I don't think publicly at the moment. I think I'd probably discuss it with some individuals. I have some ideas. Obviously, I don't think at this point, and this is something I'll explain. I think everybody that you know walking around is in one of three stages. This is the way I rationalise it. You're either in stage one, which is where everybody begins, I think, where you don't really give a shit politically. You're not arsed. You sort of think two cheeks of the same arse sort of thing. You don't really care about politics and what's going on. You're just going about your day and getting on with your life. That's stage one. Stage two is where you're essentially activated. Something pisses you off enough, and you come to the table. You have an opinion on something, and you either join the left or the right. That's sort of the only way you are, really, isn't it? You want on the left ear or a right ear, and you're either screaming about Palestine or you're screaming about migrant hotels. You're one or the other. That's sort of where our society is at the minute. Then you get to something else, I think. The natural evolution is stage three. Now, a lot of people are in stage one or stage two at the minute in Britain. I think this is the issue. There needs to be more people that comes to stage three, and that's where essentially what they call the awakening in my head. It's where you step back from the narrative and you see the bullshit. You see the people that are pulling the strings. You see the puppet masters. You see the evil, the true evil, the division, the hate, all of it. And then in stage 3, that's when people like me and you come together and we start having these conversations, and we're above all of that crap, and we've evolved on from it. But we need to drag the people from stage 1 and 2 into 3. And you can spend as much time as you like at stage 2. Some people spend years there gobbing off about the same nonsense. It just so happened I spent 3 months, that's it. I was Team Farage for 3 months, and then I realised pretty quickly that there's something way bigger going on here. And it just, again, all came from following the money, using common sense, and seeing what's going on. And this is all from falling down the UAP rabbit hole, Mark. Just from investigating UAPs 2 years ago, I can now see the way the world is, and it's almost frightening to know too much. But like I said, when the cat's out of the bag, what can you do?
Yeah, I mean, going back to David Icke, he always said that those that are ruling it want to divide everyone against each other, and that's exactly what's happening.
Makes sense. It's in the art of war, isn't it? It's in Sun Tzu.
You hate migrants, you hate racists. Yeah, it's just there's no coming together, which is why I thought, I was always during COVID, I was always a big RFK, Robert Kennedy.
Oh yeah.
Supporter, because he was talking about uniting people and what he could do in a positive way, and people had more in common than they had, against each other. That's what appealed to me, and that's what we need, is someone like that, a leader that's going to unite people, not divide.
That's right. You say what you like about the American government and the way that they're operating. You can say what you like about them. And this isn't a political podcast. And to be quite honest with you, we've got no interest in talking so much politics on it, because you can be here for hours, going round and round in circles. And it seems to be that we're operating in a world where common sense isn't being used as the Ace of Spades card anymore. And I just can't deal with that. So what I will say is this, is to everybody, that we need a leader. We need, like you just said there, someone who cares about us. It's not even about left and right anymore. It's just looking at the person standing there. You know they don't care. We need someone who cares. That's all. That's all we need. And it just seems to be happening in America, with what they talked about with autism. 1 in 10,000 20 years ago. It's now 1 in 10.
Oh, no.
And they've associated that with Tylenol, the paracetamol. So good. But this is what we need. I think America's essentially moved to stage 3. And Europe's still floundering in stage 1 and 2. And we need to get with the program quick. And it's not just about UAPs. We're talking everything. A lot of these conspiracies you can attribute to these top corridors of power and the influence that they have on the industry. And you just ask yourself a question. Just become a critical thinker overnight. And just think to yourself, who stands to make the most amount of money out of our misery? Just ask those difficult questions. And then they're really easy to answer as well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You are spot on. I can't add any more to that, really. Yeah, we need to come together. That's the Beatles sang about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let's spin it back round and let's stay true to what we're talking about. We started with UAPs. So what we do know, like you said, we've got the new information now, our new images that are coming through from the probes that are circling Mars. Now, obviously, and this is an interesting one as well, Mark. What do you think about the timing of this shutdown? When we were supposed, because they've been building this up now for over a month. On the 3rd of October, it'll be its closest pass to Mars. We'll get the best images ever. And then before you know it, bosh, shut down. NASA goes cold. There's no information being released. Pete Hegseth's calling every general in the US military over to the USA. There's all kinds of things going off, and that's maybe I'm being a bit overzealous there, making that connection, but I just wanted to have some fun and put that on the end there.
NASA's got a history of kind of shutting down, and even with the moon landings, they went quiet for a bit and opened up a private line. That's well known. So they don't. NASA has a dark history. There's a really good book called what's it called? NASA Dark Mission. It's by Richard C. Hoagland and Mike Barra. Really good book, and it goes into the occult origins of NASA.
Oh, really?
It basically comes from. Well, it comes from the Third Reich,
Oh, good
Hitler,
God.
he
Well,
had his Vril Society that were investigating paranormal and occult, collecting relics, and then
yeah.
got the Operation Paperclip that was
Yeah,
nabbed a load
exactly. The
of German
paperclip. Yeah.
scientists to come over.
You know, that's interesting,
Wernher
Mark.
von
You've just
Braun and the
mentioned
most.
something. You've reminded me of something. These artifacts. You know what I find curious? This is very interesting. This a German expedition team in 2003 went into Iraq and they made a discovery on the Euphrates River. They discovered, and what they suggested, and they sent back to their sort of HQ, was that they found the tomb of Gilgamesh, as in what it's described on the Babylonian tablets for what it looks like and where to look for and what it is. And what they found using these LiDAR scanners at the underground tomb was everything, and everything was described as is in the document that described Gilgamesh's tomb. That was in 2003. 2 days later, the USA invade Iraq under the guise of hidden mass weapons, weapons of mass destruction. The German expedition team that discovered the tomb was shooed out of the area. The military moved in. Various artifacts and everything else was sent away for analysis and all the rest of it. And would you believe it? The Smithsonian don't have a record of those things ever arriving. Connect that to Afghanistan. A lot of interesting individuals claim that there was people turning up in kit with no insignia, no flashes, going into caves, no cell phones, no briefings, no technology. Artifacts again being removed and taken away. This is in 2007-8 or whatever it was when we went in there as well. So there's a lot of credence to be. There's a lot of something to be given here to this conversation of who or why do the people want these religious artifacts so bad that possibly they'd be willing to start off wars, phony wars, basically, and get people, thousands of people killed for the sake of the retrieval of these goods and artifacts that never see the light of day again. And this goes across a lot of different topics. It's not just Iraq, Afghanistan, you know, you've got... This is a tale as old as time, isn't it? What do you think of that? Do you think there's anything to that these sort of invasions are under the guise of retrieving these historical, possibly religious artifacts?
I mean, I don't know at the end of the day. I would say there's definitely something to it. But then I guess if you follow the money, especially with Iraq, it's going to be oil, isn't it, I guess? I mean, that was the obvious one for that. But at the end of the day, what did the US gain out of Iraq?
Well, is it the US?
And the UK to that extent.
But that's the question, though. I mean, it's something we sort of touched on. Is it the US or is it a power bigger than that? Is there an organisation above that pull these strings? I will leave that, and we'll leave that where it is. Go on.
Yeah, I suspect there is.
Well, we don't want to get our fingers burnt, do we? So let's not go too close to that topic this evening.
No, but just say the US black military budget, that's unaudited.
Well,
goes off.
Again, but that's what you can see from Doge, by the way, and that information is publicly available. I will say that if you want to start somewhere, the UAP topic's as good as any topic to start, to be honest with you, because it's so there. The start point is there. It's perfect. If you go to the website, you can actually look at the Doge findings, and you can see that the Pentagon has not passed an audit in God knows how many years. So the Department of, well, it was Defense, Department of War now, in its previous years, under the Pentagon's rule, has squandered trillions of taxpayer money. And it just so happens that under the Pentagon, those contracts were set up and organised with Lockheed, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman. Those contracts are there, and these bottomless pits of money just flow into them. So this is one of those things that will come out, by the way, and there's no way of hiding it because now they're onto them. They've fought fire with fire. They've followed the money. They've seen it, and it's led straight to the front door of the Pentagon.
That was Tim Burchett's original issue, wasn't it? This is why he wanted disclosure. It's at the end of the day, it's taxpayers' money that's gone to.
And it's grown arms and legs now. I imagine what Tim Burchett started out to achieve has developed quite a lot, as it has done for us too. But Mark, what I will say is this: we'll wrap it up there. We'll go back to TikTok for 20 minutes if you like and answer some questions and stuff. That was fun. It looking like quite a crowd was amassing there, but there's a lot of information we've touched on tonight. The main sort of bulk of it was to talk about 3iAtlas. I think we've done that. At this point, we can't speculate anymore on it. We've got the information. We don't know what it means yet because of the shutdown. So, you know, the information is there and it will be spoken about within the next few days, I would imagine, or when government at least comes back up. Mark, no doubt we'll have a chat again and a conversation about what it means, especially if it turns out to be something that is NHI or something that slid up that Harvey Loeb scale towards the 10. I imagine that we've got a lot to talk about should that number move north. But thank you as ever, Mark, for jumping on.
Yeah, thank you.
It's always fun, and we'll get you on again. Thanks a lot. Guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you've stayed with us as we've gone around the houses tonight on various topics and back around to the beginning again. Thanks for joining us and having the patience with us. Please do like and subscribe. Give us a follow. Also, jump across onto TikTok. TikTok. I've got bloody UAPs on the brain. UAPs. TikTok. If you jump onto TikTok, UAP Lee, give us a follow as well. You know, some clips will be thrown onto there before this episode is released onto YouTube. And obviously Mark will be tagged in that as well, so you can get a bit of sneak preview. And we are going to answer questions on there on TikTok in the next 10-15 minutes. So thank you as ever, guys, and we'll see you later. Take care.
Just in relation to some comments that you've made on a Facebook page.
This is a Fox News alert. The Epstein files have been released.
Across the pond.
You're looking at now, sir. Everything that happens now is happening
Very serious.
now.